thank you so much again for taking the time to join us today. My name is Pankaj, but before we get started, I just wanted to run everybody through a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, thank you so much again for taking the time to join us. Secondly, we would love for this webinar to stay interactive. So please ask us any number of questions that you might have. You can use the Q&A panel in Zoom. We will be tracking questions throughout. We might take some relevant questions just as we go along, but we will certainly keep some time towards the end to answer the rest of the questions. And if we aren't able to get to anything, it's our promise to you that we'll make sure that we will get back to you, either the Sense team or the LaborEdge team, whoever the question is directed at. Also, this presentation that you're going to see today, as well as the demonstration of the product and the entire recording of this webinar, they will all be shared afterwards. So don't worry about taking notes or taking screenshots. You will have all of this content with you. Just help us out by making this interactive. This is an intimate webinar. This is only meant for people who use LaborEdge today. And we just, would really like to answer any direct questions that you might have. All right. Let's get started. With that, I want to introduce you to my co-speakers today. I'm joined by Kavita and Jason, but we'll get started with Kavita. A lot of you probably know her already, but I'll let Kavita introduce herself.
Thanks, Pankaj. Hi, everyone. I think most of you do know me, but I take care of implementations here at LaborEdge and also the integration partnerships that we have with our partners. So thank you for letting me be on this Sense webinar.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kavita. Pleasure to have you here. Jason?
And it's a pleasure to be speaking with everyone today. And my role is Director of Solution Consulting at Sense. I've been with Sense for about 3 years. And essentially, as solution consultants, we're the people who can walk through the product, answer all the technical questions about the feature and functionality, as well as the integrations that we provide. So today, I'll be partnering up with Pankaj to show you aspects of the Sense platform.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Pankaj. I am one of the founders of Sense. Started the company a little over 6 years ago. And before I started Sense, I ran 2 different staffing companies for 15 years. As a very hands-on operator, started them myself, built them up, and then sold those companies. So, very happy to get down and dirty into any question that you might have. Like I said, that's what would make this fun for us. So please keep hitting us up with questions. But before we get started, I'll let Kavita give us a quick 30-second preamble on LaborEdge itself.
Sure. Thank you, Pankaj. So for everyone who uses the LaborEdge platform, Nexus, as we call the platform, is the technology that we would want our staffing industry partners to use to be able to bring the hospitals, the staffing agencies, and the healthcare workers in order to make this platform a very swift platform to reduce any inefficiencies that you may have while you're staffing on this platform. And I think with what Pankaj and Jason are going to demonstrate, this is going to help all of you in ensuring that the inefficiencies are taken care of. So Pankaj, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kavita. And I'll give you guys a quick introduction to Sense for those of you who do not know the company. Like I said, we started a little over 6 years ago with a singular mission to build the first ever talent engagement platform that was designed specifically for the staffing industry. We've stayed very true to that mission so far. We have over 650 customers today, every single one of which is a staffing company. We also did a lot of heavy lifting right up front by building a lot of integrations, middleware, plumbing. So we integrate with a variety of applicant tracking systems and variety of homegrown systems. And you see that proof in the pudding. 6 of the top 10 staffing companies in the US today use Sense. These are obviously multi-billion-dollar firms that you've all heard of. And over a third of the largest staffing companies in the US. The 186 number comes from SIA. These are all firms with over $100 million in revenue, and 70 of them currently are live on Sense. We're also SOC 2 Type 2 certified, which tells you how seriously we take our customer data. For a company our size, it's a rarity for somebody to be SOC 2 certified, but we've obviously gone ahead and done that. And along this journey, we've raised $90 million in capital from 4 blue chip investors, as you can see, including Axel and Google and SoftBank. So very proud of what all of these companies think we're delivering to the world of work. Now, the Sense platform itself essentially stands on 3 different pillars: growth, retention, and automation. The idea behind growth is how can we add more candidates to the top of your funnel? How can we leverage your own database better? And how can we help you make more placements? So essentially increasing your revenue. Retention is all about helping you make more money from the consultants and healthcare professionals that you work with today already. Can we increase their length of assignment? Can we increase their satisfaction? Can we redeploy them? Can we have them stay with you longer, which directly impacts your bottom line? And then automation is all about operational efficiencies and recruiter productivity. Can we make your recruiters 30% more productive? Can we improve your processes so you're not doing repetitive things over and over again? And can we add that time back into your company so you can turn that into revenue producing activities? So that's essentially, Sense. Now, if you think about it, these are all the LaborEdge customers who are already using Sense today. So for anybody on this call who thought that this is the first conversation we're doing, please know that we've been working with LaborEdge for a while. We already have, as you can see, these 20 live customers. So a lot of, the use cases that you might have, a lot of integration questions that you might have, a lot of ROI questions that you might have already been figured out and demonstrated. So if you have questions, if you'd like to learn more about the platform, please reach out to us and we will leverage all of our collective experience from the 650 customers and then the integration experience from these 20 customers that you see here. All right. So with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about where the integration between the 2 products is today. We have 3 of Sense products that are currently available on LaborEdge. One of them is Sense Engage, which is absolutely a flagship product. That is the base on which everything is built. That's our automation platform that allows you to build journeys and workflows, a lot of which Jason will show you today in a lot of detail. Secondly is Sense Messaging, which is, just exactly as it sounds, a 2-way text messaging platform. You can send text messages to people one-on-one, one-to-many. You can set up automatic replies. You can set up out of offices. You can set up email signatures. If you work in an environment where you have branch offices, you can set up a shared line that everybody in a single branch can access. You can go through multiple inboxes at the same time. So just the most complete messaging system that is available today in the market is what you would see with Sense. We also have the AI chatbot live today with Sense. 90% of our customers use the chatbot for database enrichment and screening. We'll obviously walk you through these use cases live, but database enrichment is taking 100,000 people in your database or millions of people in your database and adding information that you may or may not have today. When are they available again? What kind of job do they want next? How much money do they want next? Has their email address, mailing address, anything changed since the last time you talked to them? And automatically just making sure that all of your records in the database are updated. And screening is exactly what it sounds like. Whatever are the first 10, 15 things your recruiters are asking candidates and spending time on repetitively? Are you authorized to work in the US? What kind of licenses do you have? When do you want to start work? How much money do you want? All of that can be done automatically. And then coming soon is also a website-based chatbot. So if an actual candidate visits your website, they can be intercepted by a website bot that can say, hey, how can I help you today? And maybe somebody talks about, I have a question, which is an FAQ chatbot, or I want a job, I'd like to apply to a job. All of that can happen from your website. That's going to be released soon, as well as Sense Discover. Sense Discover is another product that Sense offers today, which is an automated search and match using machine learning. So the idea that if you told us exactly what you want, or if you shared a resume with us, we'll be able to match that and actually tell you we have 5 jobs open today, or you have 5 jobs open today that this candidate might be a good fit for. Discover is a product that is live with hundreds of our customers on other ATSs. So as far as the product is concerned, it has tremendous ROI. We're just about to launch it on LaborEdge. It's not launched with LaborEdge today, but whatever you see on the left-hand side, very much available, and then right-hand side coming soon. All right, please hit me up if anybody has any questions so far, but let's start talking about why we even built Sense, why we built this integration with LaborEdge in the first place. So I'm going to start by sort of challenging you to what are some of the key issues we see in the industry today? What are most of our customers telling us? Well, this is kind of what we hear. This is somewhat applicable to the entire staffing industry. First of all, there is a high drop-off within the staffing funnel. Hopefully you agree with all of this. If hundreds of people apply to you, very few of them will move to a screening phase, then very few of them will move to an interview, and then even fewer would get an offer. Sometimes in industries, we see 100:1 applicant to hire ratio. So maybe you have a job that you reach out to 100 people for, 500 people for, and only one person is going to get selected eventually. So everybody else that drops off during this process, what else can you do to make sure that they are either assigned to other opportunities, or you figure out a way to nurture these people? So we'll talk a lot about that. The second is just the fact that you still have an underused database. We now talk to customers routinely who have 1 million people in their database, sometimes even 5 to 10 million people, or 100,000 to 500,000 people. You've obviously spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of a few years by paying money to job boards to get this database, constructed for your company. Yet most people are not using it today. Your recruiters immediately go to a job board. They don't necessarily go to your own database. And part of the reason is because this database is stale. So if we can automatically update this database, make this the place that is the most updated piece of information, then is there a way for us to get to a point where your recruiters use this and your cost per hire starts coming down? Third, there is a huge problem with retention. In healthcare, 31% of the people today are considering leaving their job altogether and go do something completely different. And of course, once somebody finishes an assignment, there can be 90% turnover. So only 10% of the people that were working for you today might actually work a subsequent opportunity with your company. So what can we do about retention and redeployment? And lastly, this idea that recruiters lose a lot of time doing manual tasks. We've had customers who've done time studies on recruiters. Essentially, what they do is they literally study what a recruiter does for 30 straight days, 8 hours a day. And then they'll categorize them into where the time is being spent. And oftentimes they'll find out that 60 to 70% of the time a recruiter spends is in prospecting, screening a candidate, scheduling interviews for them, rescheduling interviews for them, so on and so forth, pretty much all of which can be automated. So this is one part of the recruiting challenges that I want you to keep in mind. And second, and hopefully this talks to a lot of you, when we talk to staffing companies today, people are using different point solutions that does some tiny part of automation. You're maybe using something to collect referrals or something to do a survey. You maybe have a technology that helps you send out text messages, or you maybe have a chatbot, or you maybe use a third-party company to do an NPS score, or you do some lightweight candidate marketing. In many companies, this could be 7, 8, 9, 10 different solutions, which means you have 9 to 10 different contracts, 9 to 10 different customer success expectations, different pricing, different contract end dates. All of what you see in this slide can be absolutely done with Sense, which is exactly why we refer Sense as your system of engagement. You all have your system of record, which is LaborEdge. That's your system of record. And Sense can be that system of engagement that sits on top of your system of record and bidirectionally communicates. So if you are anywhere on the path towards your automation journey, please know that we can come in and make that completely whole. All right. So with this, I'm going to start talking about why we think AI and automation are the answer. Well, first of all, if you think about any kind of data that you're storing today, candidate screening, interviewing, engagement data, which essentially means any question that anybody's ever answered, any surveys, any contractor care activity, where have you submitted them? What are the analytics of what your different branches or offices or customers or recruiters are doing? Any kind of information today can be consumed by Sense, and we'll demonstrate that to you using our products. In fact, we would specifically also talk about our analytics module, which will show you how widely you can essentially slice and dice your data and how you can pretty much use any parameter to talk about what analytics for you look like. So with that, let's get straight into it. The first product we're going to show you is Sense Engage, which talks about automating your journeys. A journey is nothing but a cadence-based, a flow of events that happen one after the other using a cadence. Now you can use journeys throughout the entire candidate lifecycle, from the first time you say hello to somebody, to talking to them about what opportunities you have, screening them, sending them to an interview, getting them hired, contractor care after they've been hired, asking them for referral, asking them for sales leads, redeploying them. If you do redeploy them, doing all of this all over again. And if you don't, staying in touch with them forever as they become your alumni in the hopes of bringing them back. So I will turn this on to Jason for the moment to actually start showing you what Engage looks like and how you can automate your entire recruiting lifecycle.
Thanks, Pankaj. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll put a visual to what Pankaj was just describing. So you should be seeing my screen, and on my screen is the Sense Administrative and Operations portal. And this is where all the journeys, and we call them journeys, think of them like campaigns and individual pieces of communication, are set up, configured, and managed. And so the takeaway there is the recruiters and the salespeople will not be in this interface. They will just continue to work in Nexus and operate exactly how they would normally. And then Sense will see that activity or see the lack of activity and then be able to take action. So where I'm going to go, we're on the dashboard right now, but I'm going to jump into the journey section. And within this journey section, just to kind of level set on, what type of activities could be in place, I'll show you what we have here. And it starts and is properly ordered here, just for clarity, in the life cycle of any staffing and recruiting firm, starting with the sales side of things. And that goes with cold marketing, lead nurturing, possibly reverse marketing, and then on to the top of the funnel with the employee and candidate side, re-engaging those candidates that haven't been touched in a while. Then, of course, we can help with the evaluation, whether has to do with compliance, whether it has to do with interviews, or giving a white glove communication track to the candidates while they proceed down the process from their original application, either to getting hired or negative disposition. And then, of course, helping with pre-deployment and ramping up and making sure everyone's ready and everyone shows up, to when they're on assignment, and then even reminders, birthday notifications, right through redeployment. And if we're talking about nursing, and certainly travel nursing and things like that, you'll see that we also will sometimes have some journeys that are really more specific around travel renewals, going out to the candidate, going out to the client, and then of course shift assignment versus contract assignment. So there's a lot of different ways in which Sense can interact through the entire process. And we can even, going to have campaigns around alumni management and even re-engaging stale sales contacts. So there's a lot to it. But what I'd like to do is, go through and maybe provide you a quick candidate experience, what a candidate might see on their phone, because that's typically where most people are managing their communications, as well as diving into maybe a singular journey so you can see how it's constructed, because obviously this is a very brief demonstration, but we want you to walk away with an understanding of like, hey, I have this use case, I wonder if Sense would be able to handle it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to minimize, and we're going to be on my phone. And based on what you saw, there was a lot of different journeys, and each one of those journeys had a bunch of different pieces of communication. So I'm just going to show you a couple just to highlight the different technologies and different times in which Sense might be interacting. And since we're in Engage, which is essentially the director of all the communications and scheduler, is I'm going to show you maybe someone's getting ready to start their new assignment in a new city for travel nurse, and we just wanted to give a little bit of that white glove treatment and make sure everything is okay. So what we might have done is we might have just sent an automated text. So this is an automated text right here. And super excited for you to start at Brigham and Women's Hospital in a couple of days. If you have any last minute questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And then what's going to happen, and we'll get into this in the next section, is this was automated. But if the candidate replies to this and says, call me because they have an issue, then the recruiter who's associated with that candidate will be able to pick that up. And we'll be able to see that in just a little bit. But another example of where Sense might interact is, well, once people are actually out on contract or out on assignment, well, we're obviously collecting feedback, right? And some of those might be, onboarding surveys, 7 days into it, how to go, did you meet your manager, is everything going smoothly? How is the position versus what was advertised, and some quality assurance. Now, in that case, maybe we're also asking for referrals, or the one example I'll pull up here is, how did we do? So this is super simple, just a quick email, maybe a week into it, 2 weeks, a month into it, you get to determine the schedule, but we're just collecting an NPS score. How likely to recommend our fictitious staffing firm Blue Way to a friend or colleague? And Sense can be reactive. So that way, if I click a 7, I'm neutral, then it's just going to give them, well, what could we have done to provide you better service? But if we get a 9 or a 10, then we're a promoter. So maybe we'll get a different response. And in this case, the response is, we're super excited you had a good experience with us, but would you mind posting something on one of our social media outlets? And this is kind of a standard version, but when I get into configuration, you'll see you can configure it any way you want. And so the message can be yours, and then these links directing them to the social media, asking for that review, will be configured to exactly what you want to bolster your number of reviews as well as your quality reviews. So that's just a couple of very quick examples of what the candidate experience might look like through texting or through email. Now, coming back into Sense, that's where I wanted to go in, and we'll take a quick peek at one of these journeys. So there's 3 pieces to a journey that normally people are thinking about, and that is A, this is like a campaign. You see there's a number of different communications going on here. So one of them is content. The second is who's going to receive it, how we determine that. And the third is the trigger. When are these communications being sent? So from an audience perspective, this is where Sense excels, because we're very tightly integrated with Nexus. So we're constantly on top of the data that's in there. And if the data meets whatever criteria we have here, so I'm just editing the audience, and we're just saying, in this case, it's configured the status of the assignment is approved, the employment type is travel or contract to hire, whatever the case is, candidate status is not archived. Super simple, but no, any of the fields that we're synchronizing with Nexus will be here. So we'll be able to grab from any entity, because this is an assignment or placement journey. So we'll be able to pull from the candidate record, from the facility record, from the contact record, from the job record, from the placement record, from all those things. Any fields, you can create the criteria, and it becomes a dynamic list. So that way, when you create a placement, that person is automatically added in and it's approved and meets this criteria. But if they end up, no start, right? They message you 5 days before, and they say, hey, I just took something else for, $1.50 an hour more. Well, it's not awesome, but what's going to happen is you're going to update that in Nexus, and then Sense is going to see that, and then those people, whether that's the hiring manager or the candidate, everyone gets pulled out of this because it no longer matches criteria. So that's why the recruiters and the salespeople don't need to be in here. They just need to do what they need to do in Nexus, and Sense will listen for that. So the second aspect, of course, is the content itself. So if I'm in here, you can see here's an example of things that are happening on the start day. But of course, we can have things ramping up, like you saw that example I showed you via text. But once things have started, once the contract started, then we have this list of things in this cadence where we're reaching out to the candidate, potentially reaching out internally to the recruiter to remind them to get on the phone and call them, also to the client potentially. And this 1 month MPS, this is an example or similar to what I was just showing you. This actually has a couple more questions to it and asking about, hey, how was your experience with our recruiter? But the last question, how likely do you recommend Blue Way to a friend or colleague? That's exactly what you saw. And then we branched it. So like I said before, if they're 8 or less, we collect feedback. But if they're a promoter, that's when we say, hey, we're super excited. And then in this case, rather than Glassdoor, we're going to have something more relevant like Gypsy Nurse or Travel News Source, and then potentially have those others down at the bottom. So some really nice functionality there. And then last piece, the triggering, that's a scheduling. And it's super simple, and it uses the data potentially from Nexus. So in this case, this is a start date, and we're saying we're going to roll this out and send this 30 days after. What if we want to do something like, hey, maybe we're asking for a referral, and we want to do that on the second Friday like this, because we know that's their first payday. So we just put them to work. They just got paid. How much happier could they be? Great time to ask for a referral. So you can trigger these to go out when you want. But if you're doing a re-engagement, maybe you want to go out Monday morning at 9 a.m. So it's top of all the candidates' inboxes. Or maybe you want to do something around data, maybe a status change within the Nexus data. Maybe we want to trigger something off that, and we can certainly do so. And that's where things often will happen. We can provide that white glove communication treatment based on how that candidate's submission or how that candidate's match is tracking from when they apply all the way through, like I said before, negative disposition or higher. And we can take care of a lot of that mundane communication that the recruiters are tasked with. So that's a super quick overview of Engage, but do know there's a lot out there. And when we implement this for you. So we have templates of pretty much everything you're seeing here, and that's a starting point. But we realize that everyone has their own process and their own secret sauce. So we work with you to make sure the verbiage is yours, the content is yours, and the steps are yours. But we're going to do that for you initially, but we're going to make sure you're trained on it going forward so you can make those adjustments or create new as you want. And the other piece, you're always going to have a customer success person, a customer success manager associated to your account that you can call and interact with at any point to make sure that if you're having trouble accomplishing something, you can reach out, or, if worse comes to worse and you don't have time, you can ask them to, really help build some of this process for you. That's all included with licensing fee. So on that, I'll hand it back to Pankaj. And Pankaj, hold, please. I just need to go back to the slides. And here we go.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So, what Jason just covered was probably the tip of the iceberg. You have seen him go through a couple of journeys. We have customers today who use a couple of dozen. We have customers today who use 50. I mean, any process that you have today that you actually think you can automate, whether it is your process of submitting candidates, onboarding them, first day check-in, 7-day check-in, 30-day check-ins, asking them for NPS, redeploying people, so on and so forth. All of those things you could start automating with Sense. Now, a lot of this automation goes hand in hand with text messaging, because when you are recruiting people, when you're reaching out to 100 folks and saying, hey, I just got a new position, I'm going to send a message to 100 people and say, just got this position that you generally interested in, or your profile tells me that this is what you're a great fit for. Would you like to talk to me? And the reason you're doing this is because you want people to reply back to you in 90 seconds. You want these communications to start right away. You want to beat anybody else that you're competing with into submitting a candidate before you do. You all know a text message is read within 5 minutes. 97% of them are read, 50% of them are responded to. You've probably all seen these stats everywhere. If you look at your inbox right now, you probably have dozens or hundreds of unread emails, but very few unread text messages. So the idea is, velocity, immediately get in touch with candidates. And then from there, you just want to make sure that you can go back and forth and take take the busy work out of like scheduling a meeting or figuring out their availability and so on and so forth. I mentioned this before, but we also have access to shared inboxes, multiple inboxes, so on and so forth. And then the best part, all of these conversations are actually being noted down in your applicant tracking system, in your system of record. So the idea that, a recruiter could leave your company today and take hundreds of relationships with them is no longer going to be the case. Every conversation that the recruiter has ever had with a candidate becomes part of your system of record, becomes part of your intelligence. We also go a step further in our messaging where we do what are called intelligent suggestions. So for instance, because Sense messaging and Engage are so deeply integrated, we can literally send you a reminder within your text messaging window and say, hey, this candidate, John, is about to finish his assignment in 30 days. Want to send him a text message? So we'll give you suggestions on things to do, even if you've forgotten or even if you're running a little bit behind. So let's get into talking about what text messaging looks like.
All right, thanks, Pankaj. So where I'm going to go to start this is I'm actually going to jump out of Sense in this administrative portal that we were looking at and into Nexus. So now that I'm in Nexus, you'll actually see there's a little Sense icon down here at the bottom, and it has a 1 in it, just like the apps on your phones, letting you know when you have a text waiting for you, a notification waiting for you. So I can very quickly just pop this open and then go ahead and see all the people I've been recently interacting with, and then review those conversations. So I want to kind of set the table here with this conversation that we're looking at with Jim Hopper. This is going to be a little bit different than what you're probably used to from a texting interface. What we call is like integrated messaging. And the reason why we call that is because there's potentially a lot going on here. Not only are we going to be showing the texting chain, but we'll also be showing other things that are happening with Sense, like maybe that NPS score or the NPS survey that we sent out. We'll be able to see that it was sent out here, and we'll also be able to see if someone responded to it. But in addition, we can see things like, hey, they started a placement, in this case at Shawshank Prison, or they interviewed. So we'll be able to see some of the things from Nexus in here. We'll be able to see other items from what's happening with the rest of Sense. But then, of course, you're going to be able to see the texting. And the texting is color-coded. So we're trying to make everything as simple as it could be for the recruiter. In this case, purple, that's a mass text. So I know this was sent to Harry, but it was also sent to others at the same time. And I get to see exactly what, sent to Jim. I get to see exactly what Jim got. And then you can see also scheduler. So, and we'll probably get to that in the Chatbot section, but there is a calendar scheduler aspect of Sense. And then, you can see the response here, just scheduling some time with you, looking forward to hearing more. And then the green is actually automated. So this was sent on my behalf or from this number by Sense, and then that's what the candidate received. And in this case, my recruiter is Harry Selden. So it looks authentic, it came from their number, but it was automated. And then eventually you'll see the blue, which is me replying manually or in a single fashion. Then of course you can see along the way that we support images and attachments and certainly emojis and things like that. And then of course, last piece is we are, TCPA compliant. So if, someone replies stop, then they reply stop, and then they've been unsubscribed, they get that, but then there's no more contact available through this interface. Now I'm actually going to hop over into my normal person here. And while I'm doing that, you'll see that there is, the ability, if you're a manager, to see other inboxes, or if someone's out for the day, manage that. And then of course there's shared inboxes like Pankaj talked about as well. And if there's a shared inbox, so I'll stop there for just a second, we'll always be able to see exactly who's replying. So this is where you have the candidate interacting, but you also have conversations going on with different people. In this case, you can see Jenna message a candidate, but then I message a candidate. You can see our little avatars there. So once again, keeping it super clean, super clear with what's going on. And of course, the candidate, can't tell the difference. It's just text coming from that number. Now going into my main user here, we see that, hey, this is what you saw earlier from the candidate experience. Hey, super excited for you to start bringing women's. I would have gotten the notification and then I can pick up. So, kids said, call me. I'll say, I'll reach out at 5 today. So I can very quickly send that. Super easy to do. And then if I minimize this, you can see it actually just came through. So it's all live. Now, from just rounding out the functionality standpoint, of course, you're going to want to sometimes have lists of candidates you want to reach out to a manual basis. So we make that super easy. Just say new message, grab the numbers from the screen, and it will pull everyone in, add all the contacts, and there they are. So now I can go ahead and I can schedule this later. Like if I'm doing this at 10 at night, I don't want to go out and disturb people then. I can schedule to go out in the morning. I can insert variables, or I can just, rather than writing something from scratch, I can use a template. And you can have global templates as well as individual templates. And then of course you see I also tagged on my calendar scheduler there. So I'm not going to send this out to everyone, but you see how easy it is to send those mass texts. And if you are using a shared inbox, certainly we can tag people into conversations to make it easier to organize. But also I can filter and say, hey, show me all the people I haven't replied to, whatever the case is, whatever helps you, be more efficient. And the last thing is if I go into, I'm not even sure if this person has information, but you can see there's a lot in this instance, there's a lot of stuff going on, but we also can see upcoming automations. So not only can we see the past here, but we can see the future. So if there's anything scheduled to be happening through Engage, we'll be able to see that as well. And then last but not least, of course, interacting directly in here, you can see we can support click to message, or if you already have click to dial in place, we can have this hover, so you can still click to dial, but then still, click this and it will start the conversation with, in that case, Jordan. And if I go into one of the candidates records, in Nexus, then in the journal, we'll be able to see that activity. So not only can, that person see it who's messaging from that inbox, but you can see here, we have a Sense incoming, a Sense broadcast, so outbound broadcast, so we know it was sent to multiple people at the same time. And those messages will be logged here. And in addition, we'll also be able to show you any of the automations. So in this case, Sense and Sent, we show you the meta information, what it's about. So in this case, it was candidate passive active journey, and it was a info update. And then of course, if they respond, then we'll see that response here as well. So that, should be a pretty high level overview. The one last thing I'll leave you with, which I probably not going to show, well, maybe I'll just show it on my way out as I hand it back to Pankaj, but is we also have a mobile interface. So in case someone is away from their desk and they're out to lunch, they're still going to be able to see everything that they would see on a desktop and be able to interact. And on that, Pankaj, I will hand it back to you to introduce the chatbot.
Yeah, Jason, one quick question for you that's super easy that came in the Q&A panel is,
Sure.
Somebody asked, if you send out a mass text, do the candidates you send the text to see all of the other phone numbers, or does it go out as a single text for each candidate, even though you created a mass text?
Yeah, and of course it's going to go out as a singular text. So, that way the candidate obviously isn't going to see anyone else, and it will be a very personalized experience.
Yeah, so, exactly what Jason said. It's just making your recruiter's life easy, because you could send out a message to 100 people at the same time. You could personalize that message to say, hi, John, hi, Stephanie, hi, Katie. So it's going out to other people because you're using the first name as a variable, but everybody's getting a single message. Everybody's message coming back is a one-on-one response. So a broadcast automatically gets broken up. And let's sort of take this to the next level. I mean, we've talked about Engage, we've talked about messaging. You've also seen how Engage and messaging are tightly coupled with each other. So please know that if you're using any kind of a messaging solution today, not only will we be able to absolutely replace that, we will actually be able to turbocharge that, because your messaging will now have intelligence based on what your automations are doing. So speaking about intelligence, we're really proud of the Chatbot product that we launched a couple of years ago. So this is an AI-powered conversational recruiting assistant. Think of it as an actual recruiter talking to a candidate in natural language. This is very, very applicable to the healthcare industry, probably the most applicable. In the last couple of years that we've heard from all of our healthcare customers that, hey, our frontline workers are getting a break at odd hours. Sometimes they're getting a break at midnight. Sometimes they're getting a break at 3 in the morning, 6 in the morning. And they're not going to be able to find a recruiter at that time, but they can talk to a chatbot. They can answer specific questions. They can move themselves forward into the process. And then they can pick a time and say, okay, if you think I'm a good fit for this position, and if we've gone through an initial pre-screening round, then on Thursday at 3 p.m. I can talk to you for 15 minutes. And based on their schedule, they can pick up that time, which means 99% of the time, this person will actually show up. So your recruiters are simply coming up in the morning, looking at a calendar that is filled up with appointments that were chosen by candidates, and all of these people are pre-screened. Your hiring ratio, which is maybe 10:1 now, would probably become 2:1. So let's see how you can ask these specific questions. Let's see how you can have access to your own calendars that are integrated with our chatbot. Could be a Google Calendar, could be a Microsoft Calendar, so on and so forth. But more importantly, how all of these chatbots are completely no code and can be deployed in less than an hour. So if you are already live on our Engage platform, which I said is our flagship sort of the platform for everything we build on top of, you can literally create chatbots yourself in less than an hour, which is absolutely revolutionary, because you'll find a lot of products where chatbot can only be built by a customer success team. It takes a week to build them and test them and so on and so forth. But here you can just keep doing this all by yourself. So let's get into what chatbots can do for you.
Right. Thanks, Pankaj. So coming back into Sense, where I'm going to kind of start is kind of the reprise, start in the journeys, and then just show you the position of the chatbot. So in the candidate passive to active, I talked about the fact you might have a whole campaign to try and re-engage these people, and one of those aspects of the campaign might be a chatbot, asking them to update their information to make sure they're still interested. So we'll show you an example of that, and then the other place is the pre-screen. So when someone applies, we see that, and then we can go ahead and send that pre-screen out. Now, from a setup standpoint, this is where Pankaj was talking about how easy it is to set these up. And I'll give you a quick preview, of what this looks like. So we're looking here at, actually, that isn't the one I wanted to go into. Apologies. Let me just try that one more time. So this is what I want to go into, and you can see it looks like a workflow diagram. So this is a pre-screen for an LPN position, where we're asking, hey, do you have experience with Epic? What states you license in? Do you have any hits on your nursing license? Specialties, shift length, drug screen, and then we get the summary. So we want to make sure, of course, we give people the ability to check and make sure they answered everything the way they wanted to, so we don't accidentally negatively disposition them. Then you can put in your criteria here for what's a thumbs up and what's a thumbs down. And then we can either give them a gentle rejection, or in this case, they pass. So we're asking when they're available to work, and then the scheduler. So we're very excited to move forward. We'd like to meet with you. So let's schedule time to do that. And then potentially we're either going to send out a notification, or potentially we can even, and this isn't part of the integration at this moment, but it could be in the future, to be able to update the data within Nexus, saying that the person has passed their pre-screen, and then a quick thank you message to them, and then collection of feedback. Now, anywhere in here, I can just add a question, add a message, and this is why it's no code, or jump to a different area of the conversation, make a decision, put that summary in. We can even do job matching as well. And I'll show you that in just a second also. And then of course, adding the meeting. So very quick and easy interface to build these. And when you're ready, just click build. And it's an automated process, takes about 10 to 15 minutes to process and be ready. And then you're off to the races. Now I'm gonna veer for a second off the topic of Chatbot, but just go into the scheduling piece. So from a scheduling aspect, it's nice to have this embedded within the Sense platform because we now have context. So it's not like Calendly or something like that, where if they want to book something, they have to put in their information again. We'll have context of who that person is, and you still have all the settings about how much notice you need, how far out you want to allow people to book, what your work hours are. Despite your free busy, maybe I only want to book appointments from 11 to 1 on Fridays, even if I am free. And then of course, things like reminders. Well, in this case, we can also send reminders out, maybe a day before via email, an hour before via text. So all sorts of nice features. And we also provide the ability to have individual calendars as well as team calendars. So if you, are working with group recruiters, we can either have it round robin or just optimize based on availability. So that's a little bit on the calendar. I'm sure you might want to dive deeper into that if you're talking to us later. But where I'm going to go next is the inbound chatbot. So any place on your jobs page, we can have an inbound chatbot that will be able to go through and in this case, service whatever you want, whether that's FAQs, answering questions for people, submitting referrals, or in this case, looking for a job. So first, it's going to collect some quick contact information because you always do that. In case for some reason they drop off, you'll have that to be able to reach back out. And what's your email address? And then it gets interesting. So my candidate that I'm used to using is actually California. And I'm just going to put in IT in a second, but it's collecting really whatever you want. In this case, it's saying, hey, what do you want to work in? Maybe what's your specialty? And it can also perform the matching. So this will actually go out, look at all your open jobs and see what's closest to what they've input so far. In this case, I put in Java and IT. So it came back with a list of jobs. And if I click on this, it would take me to that job to go apply. So having this be able to service people on the inbound is great. And it can be used both for candidates as well as contacts, just different use case. The next area I'm going to go, and I'm going to go ever so quickly through this, maybe is we can certainly also have a quick reach out to have people update their information. And so this is a chatbot that's going out and it's being initiated via email. Maybe we didn't have their mobile number. So we reach out to them as part of that re-engagement campaign and then start the questions. Now I'm not going to go through this chatbot. We just did something similar. But the next one I will go through as a reprise of what we reviewed in the actual builder, which is a pre-screen for the LPN. So, hey, I'm glad you applied for the LPN position. I have a few additional questions. And this one is going out as text. So it's just a different way to engage. This is definitely much more responsive if you have their mobile number. And this message right here, you can continue the conversation at none. If I sent that for real and it was triggered for real by the system, it would actually be a link to the web-based chatbot. I can go ahead and put all this in and then continue down. What states am I licensed in? I'm licensed in Massachusetts. And then you're going to have a series of questions that come through. And I'm not going to go all the way through this because I want to save time for the analytics, but you get the idea. And then eventually we get the disposition. And well, actually, I do want to continue to go through. So, and I actually wasn't paying attention and I just answered no, and I know that's going to knock me out. So I'm just going to scroll up to a previous conversation to show you the scheduler, because that's the piece I wanted to show. So if I click on the link where they say, hey, you passed, let's continue to move forward, then it's going to take me to the scheduler. And once again, the real benefit here is nice, super simple interface, and I can just go ahead and confirm that time, and that will be that. And I'll get the confirmation, and then the chatbot would say, thanks for applying, we're super excited to meet you, and would you mind giving us a rating if you have that turned on? So very simple, very easy to use. And going back to what Pankaj was saying, this is where the experience for the candidate is amazing, right? Because you're providing them matches potentially passively. So they go in, they see that, late at night when they're done with their shift, and then they apply, and then they get a chatbot saying, hey, we saw you applied, answer a few questions. We give them the thumbs up, say, hey, you look good. You answered everything the way we wanted to. And then they even book time on the calendar. So they feel a real sense of forward movement there, as opposed to a lot of the applications that they normally would be interacting with. So on that, I'm going to hand it back to Pankaj to wrap up our last piece.
Wanting to show you a lot today, but hopefully you're getting a sneak peek into how powerful these products are and the various kind of things you can build with them. The next thing we want to show you is just our analytics and intelligence. Obviously, you can't improve anything you can't measure. I won't go through this slide just in the interest of time. So this is literally one of those things that Jason and I can talk about for an hour, but today we're going to try and talk about it for 3 minutes to kind of give you a sense of everything that we can do using the analytics at Sense.
All right, so let me dive back into it from a Sense perspective. So I'm going to go back into the Sense interface, and we're going to come down to analytics. And the landing point here is going to be the standard metrics, right, that you expect from any sort of communications, marketing, engagement platform. Delivery rates, open rates, conversion. So in the case of Sense, we're doing things via different mediums, so surveys, chatbots, emails with links, are we driving the traffic? Emails without links, are they getting opened? And then SMS, are people replying to those? And we kind of consolidate into one easy to understand metric, but then of course, breaking it down individually, as well as the bad. How many bounces did you have, unsubscribes or spammed, or even skipped, scheduled but unsent? And sometimes it's because information's missing. Other times we're suppressing on purpose because we don't want to seem robotic. And there's configurations around that we didn't get to today. But also seeing it in a visual aspect. And one of the things that's really nice when it comes to standard reports with Sense is the fact that we can also filter based on any field that we're synchronizing with Nexus. So that way, you should always be able to get to the data set you want. You're not going to be stuck with some standard filters. So you can filter down on the company, department, the office, or address, or any aspect of candidate, contact, or company. So we make it super simple to get the data set you want. But that's nice. You have an overview. But we want to make sure you can dive down. And in this case, I can dive down into the on assignment or on contract campaign, and we can see how we're doing there. And then we can dive down even into an individual piece of communication. And of course, those filters that we had apply. So if I wanted to filter down a certain company because I have, or a certain facility because I have a business review coming up, then I could do that, and I can see exactly how we've been doing those campaigns. In this case, it's a 1-week quality assurance survey. So this is where some real intelligence, comes to light, where we can see exactly how the candidates are feeling, and we can also see all their feedback. So, if they never got trained in the first week, or one of their, managers is a, hot mess, or whatever the case is, you'll be able to see that and then be a lot more consultative going forward, rather than this feedback ending up nowhere if it was a phone conversation or in a recruiter's inbox. It's all in one place and can be used to be very consultative. So that's, essentially from the high level to the nitty gritty. But then if I come back here, I'm not going to show all these, but of course we have all the individual responses, all the flagged responses. So if someone replies under a certain threshold of rating, or with keywords like discrimination or unsatisfactory, they bubble up here, but people of course are notified at that point in time to take action. The nuts and bolts of it, the delivery history, are those links being clicked, what's being effective, the chatbot metrics, how many of the chatbots are being actually completed. And this is a demonstration environment, so it's almost done. But what the completion percentage is, as well as you can dive in and see where people are dropping off, if they are dropping off. And then, of course, the transcripts of the chatbots, the two-way messaging that we were looking at before. So we'll be able to see everything there as far as volume, as far as are these actual real conversations, not just a single back and forth. What's our average response time? That's huge because, as Pankaj was saying, the candidates reply very quickly to these, and they expect the same out of you. Meetings, how many people are actually booking meetings, and how much of the organization is linked their calendar to Sense. But then, of course, NPS. We're measuring that against facility and candidates. And then the last one to leave you with is performance. So this is really where we're showing you what the benefit of Sense is. So you've communicated with this many candidates, and how many of those actually resulted in placements. So what's that? Maybe Sense re-engage that candidate to begin with, and then had multiple correspondence all the way along. Or time savings. Every time you're manually sending a text or manually sending an email, that's a couple minutes. So what we're doing is, obviously, we're doing the communication, a lot of communication for you. So we're aggregating that and telling you how many weeks, months, years of full-time employee effort that are being saved. And then comes the visualizations. So these are things that aren't necessarily always readily available, where we can see week to week, month to month, how many people out there are first-time placements versus redeployments, where we've already invested that time and money, and that's a much less expensive placement for us. And then, of course, we're doing the same thing, starts versus ends, months until redeployment. If I go to last year, that becomes a redeployment matrix. People coming off assignment, are we immediately replacing them? Or if they go someplace else, are we able to bring them back in the fold? And we're tracking up to a trailing 12 months. And then, of course, just, are we using Sense to its fullest? It's an unlimited engagement platform via email and text. So, are you using it to, create and maintain relationships in mass? And most of our clients are reaching out to, anywhere between 20 and 100,000 people each month. So on that, I'll hand it back to Pankaj.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, so hopefully we gave you a good overview of everything that the Sense platform can do. I'll leave you guys with this last slide that actually shows you the entire platform at a glance. So what you see on the left-hand side are different Sense products. You've seen Engage today, and messaging and chatbot, and the very last thing, meetings, which is part of the chatbot product. So you've seen 4 of the 6 products today. We haven't shown you Discover, which is an automatic search and match and referrals. And all of these products are available across the entire candidate life cycle. Like I said, all of this material will be distributed afterwards. And if you go to the next slide, Jason and our emails are on here for any questions that we couldn't get to today. If you wanted to reach out to Kavita or the LaborEdge team, please feel free to do that as well. Very glad that we had this opportunity to talk to you. Thank you for your questions. There are a couple of questions here we did not get to, but in the interest of time and just respecting everybody's schedule, we'll make sure we do that separately. Before I go, Jessica said, can we integrate this with the ATS we use? That's absolutely correct. That's exactly the point. Sense does integrate with your ATS, and that's how we automatically collect data from there. So with that, I'll thank everybody for their time. Thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us, and we appreciate it.